How's she going, eh? I haven't been hot rodding too much these days, but I've been fishing a lot, so I'll show you what my welfare rundown for fishing is. This is my 10-foot John boat. I bought it brand new, probably 12 years ago. It was on sale for $900 Canadian at the time, so that was about 600 American. But I don't know if it's the price of aluminum or what, but they've tripled in price since then. But I love this thing. It's very sturdy made. I wouldn't say it's the most stable boat, but it's very strong, and you're not going to dent it easily or nothing. And it's 100 pounds, so I can handle it myself quite easy. There's bigger models by other manufacturers that weigh the same amount, and they're deeper and wider, but they're real flimsy. They're like tin foil. My brother had one. So the Starcraft, can't say nothing bad about it. I love this thing. As for motors, this is my buddy's motor. It's a 5.5 Esca. It's got a Tecumseh air-cooled power head on it. I got it running good, but I actually got the sucker so hot she seized up. And I took the cover off because they're air-cooled. They have a fan on the top. I don't even know how they get air. And when she cooled down, the skirt stopped dragging and she fired up and ran good again. So I'd recommend running them with the lid off, especially if it's a warm day. But it'll put, this thing's a 5.5, it'll put, if everything's adjusted right and weight and everything, it'll put a 10-foot John on plain. Alright. For fishing reels and stuff, I don't go too fancy. I'm a Shakespeare guy. Dad bought me that reel when I was probably about 8 years old. I think it was about $25. I just liked the way it looked at the time. That's why I bought it, because I was a little kid, and that's how stupid little kids think. And my brother got a real fancy one, and I think his crapped out in a season or two. And I've been using this for over 30 years, and it isn't like it's been oiled or anything either. It's been rode hard and put away wet, and it's absolutely awesome. I love that reel. I'll probably use it to the day I croak. And I just use a Shakespeare Tiger rod. I thought it was actually a catfish rod when I bought it because it was white, but it's not. But it seems alright for a cheap rod. This piece of shit, my girlfriend bought it because you want to buy it by the color, right? Because that's what it's all about. And I'd probably spend more time untangling that thing than anything. And then we put line on it that was worth more than the reel, and it was still a tangling piece of shit. So yeah, no friggin' good. So she's moved on to a very similar reel to mine, except a newer model, and it works flawless, and it didn't break the bank. I think she bought it as a package. This reel, Easy Cast, I think it is, Shakespeare, and she's even using the line that came on it, and an ugly stick. It was like $60-some, and it's been flawless. There's never been a tangle yet, and it's been used a fair amount. It's awesome. I have a bait cast. I never got into that. Same with fly rods. I got a couple more fly rods. I don't know, maybe I don't have the patience or the coordination for it, but that's what I use. I kind of like, I don't know how I got into this, but I kind of got into a bunch of outboard motors somehow by accident. So I love these Escas with the Tecumseh power head. The only thing you'll ever have to change them is maybe the seals in the bottom. And if it's anything to do with the motor, even though they haven't been made since '87, they're the same motors that came on the old 2-stroke Lawn Boy lawnmowers, and those things were like unkillable. The old guy across the street who cuts his grass pretty regularly, let me tell you, he was using one till a couple years ago, and I don't think he ever did anything to it. I used to call it the mosquito killer because she's a smoky old girl. But yeah, I picked this one up recently. Didn't really need it because I got the same one. This one is a Ted Williams, which is pretty much exactly the same thing. My buddy Mike gave it to me. He says he doesn't need it anymore. He kind of gave it to me for doing the work on his 360 Magnum. The only thing I don't like about it, it doesn't have a built-in fuel tank. So it's just one more thing to haul around. It isn't like these things are gas guzzlers, but same kind of setup. So it all started here with this little girl, Old Blue here. I bought this when I was probably 20 years old at a pawn shop. So it was probably some old guys that he had it since new. It had some drywall mud and stuff on it. It was probably in his garage forever. And I would bet some meth had broke into his garage and stole it and took it to a pawn shop. So I wasn't giving those pawn shop crooks what they wanted. They're asking $300 for it. And what I did is it had no fuel in it, obviously, sitting in the pawn shop. I shut the petcock off, and those dumb pricks there, they put some gas in it, but were too stupid to turn the petcock on, and they cranked it over and cranked it over and cranked it over, and they couldn't get her to fire. So I got it for $200, and I went home and opened the petcock and put it on the fence and pulled it over, and it fired right up. But even though they're air-cooled motor, they do have cooling in the leg, and the cooling in the leg is to prevent the crank seal, I think, from getting burned out. So on the 3 horses and smaller, they have a tube, and that tube just gets water shot up it, and that's how she cools, and it works fine. It works great. The bigger ones actually have a rubber impeller, but yeah, it works great. And I kid you not, I have had this motor since for the last 20 years. And that's all I had for a long time. And this thing crossed lakes and everything. It's not the fastest, but she is reliable. And I would guess, I was kind of thinking the other day, I bet you I have 1,500 hours on this thing. It still has good compression. I've always mixed it at 24-1, and I've always used AMSOIL Interceptor oil. I think it's really good oil. The only thing I don't like about it, it doesn't have a dye. So if you don't keep track of your jerry cans, you might think it's 4-stroke gas, because it doesn't have any color to it, but it still has good compression. I bought rings for it years ago just to have on hand, but I don't know. I think it's gonna outlast me. This one I got off a guy. His dad passed away. His dad had it since new. He was about 10 years older than me. He says he spent a lot of time with his dad fishing with this motor, and I really like this one too because it's got the built-in gas tank. You can also hook a auxiliary tank to it, but like I say, there's really no need. They're not like 351Ms. They're pretty good on fuel, and they idle nice. These motors, they're kind of noisy and vibrating because they're single cylinder air cooled, but I love them. And yeah, so I also have these 2 trolling motors. This one's an Esca, and this is a Game Fisher. They're the same shit. I think they're both sold at Sears, except this one's got a light on it and a battery gauge. And all they do is have a dimmer switch, more or less, on them. And a rheostat, I guess would be the correct word. And they seem to last forever. You know, the only thing that would ever screw up is the rheostat, maybe. You could probably go put a dimmer switch from Home Depot on it. But they work very well, where an electric one like this uses a circuit board, and once that burns out, your SOL. So I really like them. They're, I think, 28 pounds of thrust, which is not very much, but they're good enough for a small boat. This one here is a Game Fisher 15. It uses it's a twin. It uses a Tecumseh power head. It's liquid cooled though. They're the same motor from 9.9 to 15 horsepower. They're just kind of detuned. I don't know if they have a restrictor in them or whatever. So if a guy likes cheating the system a bit, around here you have to have insurance and registration on boats that have 10 horsepower or more. I think that's why everyone makes 9.9s. So you could just rip the stickers off like I did and tell them it's 9.9, and trust me, they ain't going to know the difference. But yeah, it seems to work okay. I use this on my pontoon boat. Yeah, so then I have this one. This is a 4.5 Esca. It uses the same motor as the 3-horse, but I think the 3-horse has restrictor plates or something in it. That's probably why it lasted so long. I don't think it's working very hard for what it is, but this thing runs like a top. I had it out yesterday. It's just on the verge of putting that pontoon, or not my pontoon, my John boat on plane. It's just on verge, like yeah, if it had one more horse like my buddy's has, because my buddy's actually has a bigger motor, the 5.5, it would put it out on plane. But no, it runs flawless. It idles perfect. You control with it. They don't have reverse or anything. but you can spin them right around 360 degrees, so you can just point it backwards and do what you like. The 15 has reverse. These ones have neutral and forward. I think it's just easier to start when they're in neutral because you're not turning the prop over. But yeah, so for an anchor, that's all you need for a 10-foot John boat. It works good. And I carry around that little gas can with me, and you're set. My girlfriend picked up this this new net. It doesn't get tangled, but it is slower going through the water, so you got to be on point when you go to snatch a fish up. Let's see here. What else do I got? I got a boat I'm going to sell right away. I'm going to put this motor on it. It's from the 50s. It's a Majestic, it's called. It's a 15 horse. It's real high compression, son of a bitch. It was definitely made when men were men and sheep knew it, let me tell you. And that Arrow, I think, is just a Canadian model of an Esca Skipper, and it's got a Tecumseh power head on it. I just going to use that one for parts. And for my buddy Dave from DRC Racing, my Florida buddy, he's going to get a kick out of this. He couldn't believe this shit that we do up here because lakes are froze for 6 months of the year. So this is my little sleigh, and I hook her up to I made a little hitch on the front. So I made a little hitch, and it goes to a shackle, and I hook it to my trike. And yeah, you have so my tent's in the red bag. It's an Eskimo, and this ice hogger is actually a 4-stroke, but it seems to always start in the cold. I have 0.40 and it only takes like an ounce. But yeah, you got to drill a hole in the ice, and sometimes your guy almost needs an extension because you got 3 feet of ice to go through. But it works pretty good, and that's my setup. I throw a couple lawn chairs in there, and I got my little shovel and everything, and yeah, it works pretty good. I got a pontoon boat too, but I don't use it too often. So what I do is I hook it up to this trike. This thing's immaculate. So it almost looks like it's off the showroom floor. It's missing the sticker there, and it's getting a little rough for my legs rubbing, but it's still a very nice piece. I just chain it up, and it does all right. But yeah, that's my inner white trash fishing setup, and don't spend a lot of money on it, but I sure have a good time. I think I have as good a time as anyone else, and yeah, that's what I'm up to. So alright, have a good one. Till next time.